Shabbat Shalom, everybody. You ever had someone repeat something twice to you? What's it feel like when someone says to you, "Oh, that was wonderful, wonderful"? Or if someone says, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." What effect does it have? I mean, you got it when they said the first wonderful, but what happens when someone says, "Oh, that was just wonderful, wonderful"? How do you feel? There's something about a greater magnitude when something is repeated. It doesn't need to be, but when it's repeated just for, you'd say for emphasis, but I would say kind of for caring. It's not like yelling, "Get the phone, get the phone," but it's kind of there's kind of a deeper caring sometimes in a repetition of words. We find that in this week's Torah portion. This week's Torah portion, and the part that I'm going to focus on, talks about different leaders in a community who should be appointed. And there are several different leaders. There's judges. There's, they call them magistrates. They're kind of like mayors or governors. And every settlement ought to have their own judge and their own, like a governor. There's the Levites and the Cohens, the priests and the Levites that are talked about, and also it's talk about a king. And we'll take a look at what's involved in them, who chooses them, and there's just very, very few comments about laws concerning them, what they're supposed to do, governing them. The Torah portion starts off at Shoftim. It says, "Shoftim v'shotrim titain lecha," judges and magistrates you shall appoint. The you isn't very clear as to who it is. Even though it's you in the singular, not you in the plural, not like y'all. It's not clear that this is talking specifically to Moses. Earlier in the same chapter, the word you in the singular, because it's different, you or y'all in Hebrew, or actually all y'all, you or all y'all, are different Hebrew words. It's used in the singular you to mean all of us, like each one of us to feel it individually. So you shall appoint means each and every one of us shall be involved in the appointing of the judges and the mayors and governors. And they shall be in every settlement that we have. There shall be more than one of them. So we're talking about a whole level of leadership. The only things that it says is you shall judge well, here, I'll read it to you. And they shall govern the people with due justice. You shall not judge unfairly. You shall show no partiality, and you shall not take bribes, for bribes blind the eyes of the wise and upset or confound someone who is just and making their plea. So these are the rules. Just follow justice. It doesn't exactly tell us how justice is or what justice, how it's to be done, but it tells us three things that interfere with them. Don't show any partiality. Don't favor one person over another. And it says, and certainly don't take bribes. Bribes make wise people unwise, and it makes a just cause not to be heard very well. It messes up the very foundations of what justice is. And so that next line is tzedek, tzedek tirdof. Justice, justice you shall pursue. And there's two words for justice. There's mishpat, which is sort of like judgment justice. And there's tzedek, which is sort of like righteousness justice. Tzedek is where we get the word that you know, tzedakah, tzedek, tzedakah. So it's like saying tzedakah, tzedakah, you shall, it doesn't say you shall do or you shall love. It says tzedek, tzedek, like righteousness, justice, righteousness, you shall pursue. And that means run after it, really pursue it. Like there's somebody who just stole your mother's purse and you're running after them. You're running through the park after them. You're chasing after them. That's the kind of chasing that we have to do about justice. Justice doesn't ever stop. You know, pursuing justice doesn't stop. We have to always, always run for it. And we've got to run with all of our being. I remember one time it was at the Atlanta airport, and I don't know if you've ever been. I mean, who's been to an airport? You know, do you remember what they're like? At the Atlanta airport, there's a security check, and then you take these really long escalators down to where you take a train to go to to catch your plane. So for some reason, one of my bags was held up in the security check. And I was held up also. I was off on the side, and Mindy was picking up all the bags. She picked up all the bags she saw. We got down to the train. I noticed one bag was missing. And there was no way to get back up without going outside of security and going, you had to go out of security, then come back in. Oh my gosh. How in the world are you going to, there's no way we were going to make the flight because the security line was so long. So I said, sweetheart, wait right here. I looked, there was no guards to help or anything. I started running up the downs escalator, avoiding people coming and running as fast as I could. And it was long. And about 3/4 of the way, I stopped for a moment to catch my breath. And I went down. You can't go down. You can't stop. If you stop, you go down. You got to keep going, going, going. It's that concept of if you stop chasing justice, you not only don't get anywhere, you go backwards because jungle law is creeping up on us. The people of Amalek, might makes right, racism, hatred, bigotry, they're going to catch up on us. You always have to run. We are on a downward bound escalator, and you've got to keep running. You've got to pursue justice. And we tell it twice. Justice, justice, you shall pursue. Why do you think it's told twice? Justice, justice, you shall pursue. Our rabbis say, well, justice, justice means you need to have a just goal, but you can't break the law in order to get there. So justice for the ends and justice in the means. I think it's kind of endearing. It's kind of like saying, it was so wonderful, wonderful that you came today. It's that kind of endearing feeling. Tzedek, tzedek tirdof. It's justice. It's justice. Pursue it. You can do it. Righteousness is in there. It's so important. It's so important. We're not being yelled at. We're being kind of pulled in as a partnership. This is what we do. Tzedek, tzedek tirdof. It then talks about some other leaders, the Levites and the Cohens, and these are not appointed. The judges and the magistrates, the mayors and the governors are appointed by the people. We appoint them, and there are guidelines for how we can appoint them. But the Cohens, the Levites, if your dad's a Levite, you're a Levite. If your dad's a Cohen, you're a Cohen. There's no appointing. They were fixed by God, and it's hereditary on down. But there are some guidelines for them. they can't own land, and land was the primary source of revenue in the ancient world. They can't own land. There are Levitical cities, towns which they can live in, but um, their job is to be not only the religious government, but also kind of the secular government for the Israelite people. They handled many things. I don't know if you've heard of the term in English, a tax levy. A levy. It seems to be that has to do with the word Levite, the Levies. We would all support the Levites. And so they had a big limit on how they could, they have a big limit on how they could they can't amass very much wealth. They can't grow big farms and big corporations and such like that. And then the next is the kings. And remember, we're not quite in the land of Israel. This is still the Torah. And it predicts that when we come into the land of Israel. I'm going to share with you something I wrote based on this Torah portion quite a long time ago. This is, first of all, can someone nod their head if they can see the words and put a thumbs up or something if it's legible? Is it big enough to see? All right, so this is this week's Torah portion. When you enter the land that the Lord your God is giving you, and you've taken possession of it and settled in it, and you said, let us set a king over us, like all the nations around us. Now, you don't have to have a king. God is our king. We can have mayors and governors and judges and Levites and priests. But when you get to the land, it's sort of, we're jealous of the other people. We want to be just like them. Want to have a king? All right. You can have a king. Be sure to appoint a king over, be sure to appoint over you a king the Lord your God chooses. So God chooses this one. We choose the judges and the governors, but God chooses the king. And the king must, the word is he, but it can mean he or she. That person must be from among your fellow Israelites. Do not place a foreigner over you, one who's not an Israelite. The king, moreover, so in other words, it's got to be one of our own people. I guess it could be someone who converted to Judaism who is an Israelite. It doesn't say that can't be the case. The king, moreover, now here's the very first thing. They're the only requirements about a king. They can't acquire a great number of horses for himself. Now, what are horses? Horses are a symbol of power because it's like an army. Horses are like an army. And so the king can't have his own personal army. It's also a symbol of like wealth and power. They can't have too much. Can't do that. And Egypt was a source of, they were kind of the enemy at the time. Remember, we fled from Egypt. You cannot go back to Egypt to get more horses. You can't deal with the enemy for your own personal gain, is what they're saying. You can't go to a foreign country. Because the Lord has told you, God has told you, you may not go back that way again. And the king cannot take many wives, or his heart will be led astray. And I think when they say, the word is nashim, it doesn't just mean wives, it means, it implies like a harem. You can't have a bunch of concubines. Wives is a more politically, wives is more of a euphemistic term. Because if you do, his heart might be led astray and he won't focus on serving the people. And he must not accumulate large amounts of silver or gold. Again, it's in the same sentence. I would not have put a period there after astray. I would have put a comma. The king the king's heart can be led astray if the king accumulates, is only focused on getting silver and gold. When the king takes the throne of his kingdom, he's to write himself a copy of this very Torah, taken from that of the Levitical priests. So in other words, copy the ones that copy a Torah that the Cohens have. It is to be with him, and it is to be read all the days of his life. So every single day, this king is to get a briefing on Torah. And what is Torah? What does it teach? If you do that, this king will learn to revere Adonai, his God, and will learn to follow carefully all the words of this law and all these decrees. And if he gets this daily Torah briefing, he will not consider himself better than his fellow Israelites, and he will not turn from the law either to the right or to the left. And if he does all these things, then he and his descendants will reign a long time over his kingdom in Israel. Aren't these fascinating concepts for what the leader of the nation is to do? I wrote this some time ago, these notes, and I'm just going to share them with you. I wrote them really some time back. Some things to note about the king. We don't appoint the king, God appoints the king. The king is accountable to God, period. The king is not God, not like Pharaoh. The king doesn't make the rules. The king is accountable to God. The king cannot acquire a large personal army, and the king can't go to a foreign enemy and make a deal that benefits only the king. He should not have many wives, or, and again, it could be she should not have many I don't know what non-gender specific term I would use for wives, but I'm sure it's in there somewhere. He or she should not have a harem, or use his or her appointment to accumulate silver or gold. These things will lead them astray. And they're to have a personal copy of the first 5 books of the Bible and read from it daily. It emphasizes that no person is above the law, particularly that the king is not better than the citizenry. Remember, the most repeated teaching in all of Torah is to be kind to the stranger. And the stranger doesn't just mean someone who you don't know. It means the foreigner, the immigrant, the alien, to be kind to them. The hierarchy is the king serves the people and the people serve God. I don't know, I thought that these ancient words are in there, and they were carried in every single generation because our ancestors wanted us to know them. Our ancestors wanted us to have them kind of memorized and in the back of our minds so that we can look at the world through these words. And even though we don't today have a king, some of these words, if we know them and we know what to look for, maybe they give us direction how to move. Maybe they let us know if we're going the wrong direction. Maybe they let us know if there's red flags or if there's green flags. What are okay things and what are not okay things. I inherited this from our ancestors, and you did as well. You inherited these words. And my job is to help you to realize their relevance. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our president, Michael Scott, to share a couple of words.
Thank you, Rabbi, and thank you, Cantor, for leading us in services this morning. I want to thank everyone who attended our Shabbat Under the Stars last night. It was an amazing event to have so